Put away your tinfoil hats, everybody. There were less shenanigans than maybe we predicted in Daytona 500 pole qualifying. In this video, we're going to talk about 3 takeaways from qualifying, and not only leading into the duels tomorrow, but the 500 itself. That we learned some interesting things in qualifying. Let's get into it. I'm so sorry, old friend. It appears that I let you down. That didn't get anywhere close to the camera. That was a bad throw. But anyway, what wasn't a bad throw was the pole position run that Alex Bowman had to put his number 48 Chevrolet on the pole position. So without any further ado, let's look at what we kind of gained out of qualifying, which is the knowledge of the 2 cars that'll be locked into the front row and the 2 open cars that'll be locked into the field. And the front row for the 63rd Daytona 500 is Alex Bowman at a 191.261 average speed for his lap, alongside William Byron at 190.219, an unbelievable average for Alex Bowman, 1 mile per hour faster than his teammate at Hendrick Motorsports. But that's a front row lockout for Hendrick. That's the I think they've done that probably, I think, for the last 5 or 6 years, just in terms of their power plants. Of course, last year getting on the pole was Stenhouse, but that was still with Hendrick equipment. So the Hendrick cars, they are not to be messed with at Daytona International Speedway. Now, the open drivers that were locked in today, one is not such a surprise. The other one, I would say, was fairly surprising. Ryan Preece, 8th overall at 189.1 miles per hour. I think most of us expected that he would be in that position, or at least close to it, because again, teammates with the team that, or the driver that got on the pole last year, they had to get in, they had to qualify well. They've got Hendrick power. That's not a surprise. The surprise to me was David Reagan getting 13th overall at 188 miles an hour, but beating Austin Cindric into the field. So think about this, folks, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later. But Front Row Motorsports with their Ford is faster than Team Penske with their Ford. I mean, just that to me is something that I hope doesn't get overlooked, because that is a pretty significant development. And we're back, and I've got a new hat, or at least an old hat if you've been around the channel for a while. And by the way, go over to Race 92 right now. We got a new shirt. It's called the Noon Shirt, and I think it's going to be a great shirt to buy, especially if the weather reports are true and we're going to get rain for like the first 3 days of trying to get the 500 in. But if you started at noon instead of 2:30, hey, maybe you'd get the race in. I don't know. But anyway, so I want to talk about 3 different topics that we kind of learned in Daytona 500 qualifying that will not only, again, lead us into the race, but also lead us into the duels tomorrow. The first point I want to make is that what is old is new, or what is new is old, something like that. The pole position, Alex Bowman, it shouldn't be much of a shock. All things being equal, that driver, that team has been very quick. But I saw a lot of people confused, or maybe some people were memeing, but I think some people will genuinely be confused. How is the 48 car this fast this year when it wasn't exactly all that fast last year? Well, it's really a change of the body wrap, okay? The car that qualified on the pole this year is the same, at least comes out of the same stable that has qualified on the pole in the past, the number 88 car. They've renumbered it to 48 this year, and Alex Bowman, of course, really hasn't moved anywhere. He's just stayed in the same car. They've just, again, changed the sponsor and changed the number and changed the paint. So therefore, it stands to reason that that car would be very fast once again. And I guess from a tinfoil hat perspective, hold on, let me get it back out. I guess you could say that yes, he's replacing another legend and getting a pole in that year. But I really do think that Alex Bowman and his team truly are some of the best qualifiers at Daytona. They really do have the hottest equipment. Now, this was something that was brought up to me on Twitter, and I feel I should throw it in here. And I don't think it's really a jinx, because we're talking about something that's a stat, and I'm not saying or predicting this. In fact, it's probably an anti-jinx. But the pole sitter at the Daytona 500 has not won the race since 2000. So in the modern era, really the style of racing is so very different since 2000. I mean, just think about it. It's so unlikely. Generally speaking, the cars that are fast, single car, don't run in the pack very well. And in a race which requires you to race in the pack, like the Daytona 500 has since 2001, generally speaking, the cars that are just quick don't lead the field to the checkered flag. I would say the one thing that was kind of different this year versus the last few years, and all the years in the Daytona 500, is that this qualifying took place in the dark, in the cool. And of course, these days, #noon, the Daytona 500 ends in the cover of darkness. So if Bowman can make it to the end of the race, he seems to have a pretty fast car for the nighttime conditions. Does that mean anything? I don't know. The second point I need to make is that who had the fastest Toyota? And this, again, would be tinfoil hat territory if he had gotten the pole, but he didn't. Bubba Wallace. And I have to say, I mean, I've said it for a little while at this point, but I'm just going to state it here and lay it out there. Bubba Wallace is a threat to win this race. He really, really is. And we got to start acknowledging that fact, because we're going to see in the duels if he's for real and he's legit. But he's, what, a mile per hour or so faster? I think about half a mile per hour faster than his teammate, about 0.4 of a mile an hour faster than Christopher Bell, who was the second fastest Toyota. So we know that the Toyotas, generally speaking, are the best in the race. Denny Hamlin has proved that over the last few years, hasn't he? So it stands to reason as well that a driver that could get a Petty car to finish second at the Daytona 500 would probably, in a Gibbs car, and let's be honest, it's a Gibbs car, is going to be pretty strong. It's going to be up to Bubba, of course. It's going to be about him sitting in that seat and turning the wheel and pressing the pedals at the right time. But I really do think he is a true contender for victory. And we're just going to have to see. I know the boomers aren't going to like that, but it should be fun. That'll be dramatic on social media. There's no doubt about it. Now, the final point I want to make is very key to tomorrow night, and that is the 1995 Indy 500 factor, which of course is the Penske bump. And if you don't know, in 1995, Team Penske missed the Indianapolis 500. Both their drivers went home, Emerson Fittipaldi and Al Unser Jr. Since then, Team Penske really hasn't made much of a habit out of missing big races. That could happen tomorrow night with Austin Cindric. Worst case scenario, really, for Austin Cindric happened tonight. He didn't qualify on speed. Will he be able to make the show? I would still say yes, there's a definite possibility that he will be able to make it in. But he has got a minefield to overcome. He's got to hope he gets a lot of help from his teammates, and he's got to hope he doesn't get wrecked or wreck himself. If Cindric crashes and, say, Kaz Growler gets in, or Ty Dillon gets in, or just beats him to the line, or finishes ahead in their duel. I mean, there's so many ways that Cindric could get knocked out of this thing, and we could be seeing a Penske car go home. I think that's a huge story. So that's going to be something that I'm going to be paying particular attention to tomorrow night, is whether or not Austin Cindric makes the damn race. I mean, again, I've been saying this. The field in the open side of things, very much strong this year. A lot of depth, and no place is that more evident than a potential Penske bump. Again, it hasn't even really been a possibility since Indianapolis in 1995. So this is a big deal. And certainly Austin Cindric is a rookie in this event. He's never had to do this before, which again kind of mounts that pressure. It's a lot of pressure. It's going to be exciting. So, what do you think of any of this? What do you think of my storylines? Do you think they're right on the money? Do you think they're way off the money? Let me know down in the comments section below. This has been David Land on YouTube. Subscribe for more motorsport content throughout the week, particularly pertaining to the Daytona 500. We'll see you in the next video.